The morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Riverside Elementary School, casting long golden beams across the polished gymnasium floor. Parents filled the wooden bleachers, their cameras ready, their voices a gentle hum of anticipation. It was the annual spring recital, a tradition the community cherished deeply. On stage, dozens of children sat in neat rows, their faces bright with nervous excitement. Some whispered to their neighbors. Others waved at their families. But in the front row, one small girl sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed somewhere far away. Her name was Emma Harrison. She was 7 years old, with honey-colored hair pulled back in a careful braid, and she wore a navy blue skirt that her nanny had pressed that morning. To anyone watching, she looked like a porcelain doll, beautiful, perfect, and utterly silent. Emma had not spoken a single word at school in over 8 months. Her father, William Harrison, was the CEO of Harrison Technologies, a company whose name appeared on buildings throughout the city. He was a man who commanded boardrooms, who made decisions worth millions before breakfast, who lived in a world of deadlines and quarterly reports. He loved his daughter deeply, but love and understanding are not always the same thing. Emma's mother had passed away 2 years earlier, after a long illness. Since then, the grand Harrison house had become quieter. The staff moved through its halls like ghosts. William worked longer hours. And Emma stopped talking. At home, she spoke occasionally, short sentences, whispered to her father or her nanny, Mrs. Chen. But at school, her voice had vanished completely. Teachers had tried everything. The principal had suggested therapy. Specialists had been consulted. But Emma remained locked inside her silence, watching the world through careful, guarded eyes. Miss Sarah Mitchell noticed Emma on her first day teaching at Riverside Elementary. Sarah was 26 years old, fresh from her certification program, and carrying student loans that made her check her bank account every morning with quiet dread. Her apartment was small, her car was older than she cared to admit, and she bought her clothes from thrift stores she told herself were vintage. But Sarah had chosen teaching for a reason. She believed in the quiet magic of connection, in the possibility that every child carried a light inside them, waiting to be seen. During her first week, Sarah learned about Emma from the other teachers during lunch in the cramped faculty room. "The Harrison girl. Good luck," said Mrs. Peterson, who had taught 3rd grade for 23 years. "She doesn't speak. Hasn't all year. Her father's tried everything money can buy, therapists, specialists, you name it. Some children just won't be reached." Sarah nodded slowly, but something stirred inside her. She had been a quiet child herself once, after her own mother had left. She remembered what it felt like to carry words inside you like stones, too heavy to lift. That afternoon, Sarah watched Emma during art class. While other children painted with wild enthusiasm, splashing colors across paper, Emma worked with meticulous care. Her painting showed a garden, not the messy, chaotic gardens children usually drew, but something quieter. A small bench beneath a willow tree. A bird on a branch. Empty space that felt intentional. Sarah pulled up a chair beside her, careful not to crowd. "That's beautiful," she said softly. "The way you painted the shadows under the tree, that takes real observation." Emma's brush paused. She didn't look up, but Sarah saw her shoulders shift slightly, as if she was listening. "I used to draw gardens when I was your age," Sarah continued, her voice gentle. "After my mom left, I would imagine places that felt safe. Quiet places. Places where I could just be." Emma's hand stopped moving entirely. For the first time, she glanced sideways at her teacher, just the briefest look, but Sarah caught it. She didn't push. She simply sat there for another moment, then quietly moved on to help another student. Over the following weeks, Sarah began a patient campaign. She never forced Emma to speak. Never put her on the spot. Instead, she created small, safe moments. She left a notebook on Emma's desk with a note, "If you ever want to write to me, I'll write back." The next day, she found a single sentence in careful handwriting, "I like your bracelet." Sarah wore that bracelet every day afterward. She learned that Emma loved poetry, real poetry, not the simple rhymes most 7-year-olds preferred. So Sarah began reading Mary Oliver and Langston Hughes during quiet time, and she noticed Emma leaned forward, listening. She discovered that Emma stayed late every Thursday because her father worked late, so Sarah stayed too, and they would sit in the classroom together. Sarah would grade papers while Emma drew, and sometimes Sarah would hum softly, old folk songs her grandmother had taught her, and Emma would stop drawing just to listen. The spring recital arrived faster than anyone expected. Traditionally, each grade performed something special. The third grade was scheduled to recite a poem together about seasons and growing. Every child had a line to speak into the microphone. Every child except Emma, who had been given special permission to simply stand on stage silently while others spoke. 2 days before the recital, Sarah found Emma sitting alone in the classroom during recess, staring at the poem they would perform. Sarah sat down beside her. The room was quiet except for the distant sound of children playing outside. "You know," Sarah said slowly, "when I was in school, I had to give a presentation, and I was so scared I almost didn't go. My teacher told me something I never forgot." She paused. "She said that our voices matter most when we're afraid to use them. Because that's when speaking is an act of courage." Emma's fingers traced the words on the page. "But," Sarah continued, "courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and choosing to try anyway. Even if your voice shakes. Even if you can only manage a whisper." Emma looked up at her teacher, and for the first time, Sarah saw tears balanced on her eyelashes. "I miss my mom," Emma whispered, so quietly Sarah almost didn't hear. "When I talk at school, it feels like I'm forgetting her. Like I'm pretending everything's normal when it's not." Sarah felt her heart crack open. She reached out slowly, and Emma didn't pull away. "Oh, sweetheart," Sarah said. "Using your voice doesn't mean forgetting your mom. Your voice is part of her gift to you. She gave you that voice. She'd want to hear it." Emma's tears fell then, silent and steady, and Sarah held her while she cried, the first real tears she had allowed herself at school. The day of the recital arrived with bright sunshine and nervous energy. William Harrison sat in the front row of the bleachers, having rearranged his entire schedule. Mrs. Chen sat beside him, dabbing her eyes before anything had even begun. The third grade filed onto the stage. Emma took her place in the front row, looking small and solemn. Sarah stood off to the side, her heart pounding harder than any of the children's. The poem began. One by one, children stepped forward to speak their lines into the microphone. When Emma's turn came, according to plan, the next child was supposed to skip her and continue. But Emma did something no one expected. She stood up. She walked to the microphone on legs that trembled slightly. The gymnasium fell absolutely silent. Emma's hands gripped the microphone stand. She looked out at the audience, at all those faces, and Sarah saw her falter. Their eyes met across the space, and Sarah pressed her hand to her heart, mouthing, "You've got this." Emma took a breath. And then, in a voice that started as barely a whisper but grew stronger with each word, she spoke her line. "And in the spring, the seeds we planted in the dark begin to grow." The gymnasium erupted. Parents stood. Some cried. William Harrison's face crumpled with emotion as he watched his daughter, his quiet, wounded daughter, standing in the light, using her voice. But Emma wasn't finished. She leaned into the microphone again, her voice clearer now. "I did it for you, Mom," she said. "And for Miss Mitchell. And for me." Then she smiled, a real smile, the kind that transforms a face, and returned to her seat. After the recital, in the controlled chaos of parents and children and celebration, William Harrison found Sarah. This man who negotiated multi-million-dollar deals struggled to find words. "I don't know how to thank you," he finally managed. "We tried everything. Specialists, therapists. With respect, Mr. Harrison," Sarah said gently, "you tried everything money could buy." But Emma didn't need money. She needed time. She needed someone to sit with her in her silence until she was ready to break it. And she needed to know that her voice mattered, not because of who her father is, but because of who she is. William nodded slowly, understanding something he hadn't before. As families filtered out into the spring afternoon, Emma ran back to Sarah and threw her arms around her teacher's waist. "Thank you," she whispered. Sarah knelt down, eye to eye with this brave little girl. "You did the impossible," she said. "You found your voice again. That wasn't me, Emma. That was always you." Emma smiled, and in that moment, Sarah knew why she had become a teacher. Not for the salary or the recognition, but for the privilege of witnessing a child step out of darkness and into light. For the sacred work of helping someone remember they matter. The gymnasium slowly emptied, but Sarah stood there a moment longer, watching Emma leave hand in hand with her father, chattering now about what she wanted for dinner. Outside, spring was blooming. Inside, something even more important had blossomed. A voice long silent had remembered how to sing.